So this question asks us to create the secant function for this graph. Cosecant would also work, but to get it right in Newton, we have to use secant. So secant is the reciprocal of cosine. That means we're looking for, we could find the cosine function. That's this red curve that I've just drawn. And if we can figure out the cosine function, we can work our way backwards to get the secant function. All you have to do is replace cosine with secant. So the first place to start is probably the midline. The midline is the line that would cut this in half, and I'm drawing a visualization of what the midline should look like. That appears to be at y equals -2. So in our form, y equals a cosine bx minus c plus d, excuse me, d is -2, because that's the y, the value of y that creates our midline, that horizontal line. Amplitude could go next. To find out the amplitude, it's the distance from the midline to the top. So that looks to be about a half, positive 1/2. So we'll say A is 1/2. And then we could find out the period next. The period is the distance until you start repeating yourself. So it's this distance here. To find that, we could take the ending x-coordinate, of 5/4 pi, and subtract the starting x-coordinate. That will be the distance between the two. So 5/4 pi subtracted by 1/4 pi, that's 4/4 pi, or just 1 pi. So the period is pi, but that's not what b is directly. You have to do a little bit more work to figure out what b is. The period of sine and cosine is 2 pi divided by b. And this work over here just told us that the period is pi. So to solve this equation, I'd multiply b to both sides, and then divide pi from both sides. So it looks like b is going to be 2. So now we just need to see the horizontal shift, then we'll have our equation. Let me see. So they gave us this dot. So the graph of cosine, if we're trying to graph this red curve that I just drew between all those two things, cosine always starts at the top of the amplitude, unless you were to change this a to be a negative, and then it would start at the bottom of the amplitude. So that's one thing we could do, is we could say, hey, look, from x equals 0, I should say, from x equals 0, we shifted pi over 4 units to the left, and then we start at the bottom of the amplitude. So if we change a to be negative, then cosine starts at the bottom instead of the top. And then we're not at x equals 0, we're shifted pi over 4 units to the right. And so the last part of this is just knowing that horizontal shifts are opposite of what we think. You know, if you want to go pi over 4 units to the right, that means you want to subtract pi over 4 units. So you want c to be negative, which is built into the formula. And if you want to go pi over 4 units to the left, you want to add pi over 4 to x. So we're going to say c is pi over 4. And I think that's everything. So the complete equation is y equals -1/2 cosine 2x minus pi over 4. Then it's plus -2, so that's subtracted by 2. So that's the equation for that red curve. And since we want secant, we want the blue curve, we just have to replace cosine with its reciprocal secant. Now we're done.